I'm not gonna worry about your level of concern.
Yoy and double yoy.
We talking about
Twitter.
Triple yoy.
Think of how stupid the average person is, and then realize half of them are stupider than that.
Quadruple yoy.
I hope all Steelers fans just heard that from beginning to end and understand what a treasure, how lucky you are. You're so lucky. You have no idea how lucky you are. So lucky.
I believe in the United States of America, and I believe in the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Stand, guy. Stand, guy. Stand, guy.
Love the show. Welcome to another edition of What Jin's Talking About, the conversation about the Steelers' social media conversation. I'm Kyle Kreis in all my glistening glory. Could have shaved. Did he shave? No. Did he? Is he wearing dry shampoo? Not enough. With me is Greg Benevent.
Hello.
And on the ones and twos, it's DJ Andy Van, a.k.a. Slike.
Happy to be here, man. Thank you for having me.
All
Very
right.
happy to have you here, Andy.
We're here every week exposing the most toxic and hot takes on Steelers social media and beyond. Coming up in the second half of the show, I'll something that wasn't necessarily on. Well, it was on Reddit before Reddit went down for 48 hours.
Okay.
There was this discussion brewing on the All-Tomlin Team.
Oh,
so,
okay.
a couple names were thrown out there, but I went and created a whole 53 plus practice squad.
Oh, jeez.
And I know some Steeler fans are going to be unhappy with this.
Okay. I'm unhappy you did it and you took that time, but I'm glad to talk about it, yeah.
That's coming up in the second half. But right now, let's get to the takes. It's mandatory mini, starting with by Josh Carney. The Steelers' new look offensive line is the biggest storyline of this week's minicamp for the franchise, according to Bleacher Report. So you're Martin Scorsese in Lynn Latrobe. O-line, is that what you're curious about?
Well, I mean, as soon as you put in the context of Scorsese, that kind of changed the way I looked at it, because it very much could be like a Scorsese story in that, like, wow, all these young guys are friends, and they come along together, and it could work out, and then it might not work out, and it's, like, tragic and beautiful when it does. So that's entirely possible if you're going to look at it through a context of Scorsese. But I think, also, too, there's, maybe it's the biggest storyline only in terms of, like, it has the potential to be very good. I mean, I don't know, you can say the same thing about the inside linebacker, because they've put a lot of resources there too, and I'm not sure that has the same upside, all those guys.
I think still, if you're talking storylines, it's still got to be, I guess, often, between Kenny and George Pickens and Matt Canada, and Allen Robinson. That still seems to be the if it was Asteroid City by Wes Anderson at Latrobe this weekend, or what else is coming out this weekend?
I literally don't know. I haven't looked in a long time.
Oh, it's
Indiana
The
Jones
Flash.
isn't for a minute. Yeah,
The Flash. If we're going back and with the Michael Keaton Batman.
Well, the other thing is just, not to use a Tomlinism in this show, but there's more of the players in the offense whose story has yet to be written. Those guys are younger, as a general rule.
Oh, so you're saying there's still some journey left for these guys? Where's Journey?
This is a product of your journey, and your journey's not over yet.
Not over yet. It's just starting for the offensive line.
Hopefully it's not close to being over yet.
Tell that to Kendrick Green. It's not over yet. Okay. Let's go to the defensive side. At RayFit1, Ray Fittipaldo, insider. Steelers defensive coordinator Terrell Austin says Mark Robinson is still a work in progress, but he said the hope is he will be ready to compete for a starting job next season.
Wow.
So inside linebacker, if talking storylines and question marks, inside linebacker is a big one. I guess we can cross Mark Robinson will not be at the finish line, at least come starting week one.
So he specifically meant next season as in like 2024 to 2025, not next season as in like the season we're going to play starting in September.
I mean, if you were talking about this season, would you say next season?
I see, that's just it. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there. That makes sense, though. I do. I mean, because everything you hear about Mark Robinson is like, wow, this guy's fast. Or like, is he ready to start? They're like, he's still really fast. Like, he's ferocious.
It's like, he's, if anything, you can want to compare him to Vinny Williams, who I think recently said, even in college, they weren't playing him on passing downs.
Right. Oh, yeah, at Florida State, where they had a bunch of guys that were going to go very high in the draft and not in the 6th round. But yeah, I mean, it's as exciting as that Ravens game was. I remember standing next to you watching the Browns game, where I forget what that was. It a draw or something? But like in HD, you could see just how much Robinson was out of position on a couple plays. Like even a lay person seeing it be like, wow, he is barely in the screen.
Well, he's and he's still learning, despite
which is fine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, well let's talk special teams. The tweet from @Stokori Ski. Good. We've reached the point of the offseason that Yinzers think Danny Smith is the best special teams coordinator in the NFL, instead of the truth that he should have his head on the chopping block this season as much, if not more, than Matt Canada. If you thought Matt Canada was enemy number one, no. Danny Smith is, why is he getting all this hate?
First, I have to get used to being able to look at these tweets and see the icon of the person tweeting them. Like, that is going to be an adjustment for me, Greg Benevent, because I looked at this picture of Stokori and I'm thinking, man, that's probably what I would look like if I'd never moved out of Pittsburgh. I might have taken this exact picture. I mean, I just from growing up as a Steelers fan under the Cowher era, it was, you knew when the special teams coach was going to get fired after the season. It's when something bad happened with the special teams in the playoffs. And it would be a fairly consistent thing. I mean, it was like an ongoing joke in Pittsburgh media that whatever happened, we'd blame it on Chris Brown, we'd blame it on the special teams. Rod Woodson couldn't cover that guy. Tim McKyer couldn't. Blame it on special teams. So, I mean, I think that's, unless, I don't have the stats in front of me, nor do I care to look them up about where the team ranked in terms of kickoff coverage or covering guys or returns and all that. But I usually, when a special teams coach is going to get fired, it's because there's something dramatic. A play you remember, something that, blows a lot of things up that went very badly.
Or 12, or something like 12 men on the field, or not enough men on the field. Like, that seems like a coaching thing,
Yeah, but again, I agree with that. I'm just piggybacking on something with high stakes. It happened in the division game. It happened in Baltimore. It happened in the playoffs.
And we haven't been in that position so how come Danny Smith hasn't been on the line yet?
I just keep thinking of pictures of that video of him lifting weights with the guys last year and how much I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
All right,
I'm old.
One more thing about minis, and then we can get to some meaty stuff. The tweet from @Brooke Pryor. Steelers wideout George Pickens and Joey Porter Jr. listed among the 10 veterans and rookie players identified by Rising Stars Inc., the marketing and licensing arm of the NFLPA. Basically, they list two things.
Okay.
The rookies expected to make a breakthrough this year, and Joey Porter Jr. is number 10. Wow. Do you see him being the rookie that we're going to be talking about this year?
I mean, it's entirely possible. I'm just stunned by, the top 10 rookie jerseys and a second-round cornerback. Obviously it's his name, and he played at a big school, and he's a personable young guy. And just also in the second one of the veteran players, it's like, it's really, you're not thinking much of Jordan Love if you're thinking the new starting quarterback of the Green Bay Packers is only going to have a number 10 best-selling jersey.
You're talking about veterans who are projected to drive the sports licensing business up front. And
right.
Jordan Love is 10, and George Pickens, number 5. No, where's Kenny? No Kenny jerseys?
Well, I mean, I think they sold a pretty decent number of those too. I think but a lot of this list makes sense. I mean, I can see it's the new running back in Carolina. We're going to run the offense through. I can see DJ Moore, the new receiver in Chicago. Like, that all makes sense to me. I saw a pretty fair number of Kenny jerseys. If anything, might be okay if we didn't sell as many of those and kind of keep the hype train down a little bit.
Oh, you think it might become you don't want to have to, sell those back on eBay after one more contract?
Exactly, $100 t-shirt jerseys, yes. And pick it with one T, buying them on the side of the street that way.
What about those if you had the Mitch jersey? That's even although that's still good. Luckily you didn't throw out your Mitch jersey. That's still good.
You kept the Mitch jersey. That is something you could wear with pride on Free Shirt Friday or whatever.
All right, enough OTAs. Let's get to some real stuff.
Oh my God!
Groomed.
Kenny, you bastard!
We're grooming Kenny still. Let's get to the tweet. @Kyle Beagle. Kyle Beagle. Bleacher Report names Kenny Pickett as NFL quarterback who will explode into stardom in 2023. So he's not on the list of hot jerseys to sell, but he will explode into stardom.
I just keep thinking, looking at this guy thinking, hello, I'm Kyle Beagle. And I gotta get past that. I mean, sure, it seems as likely as anyone to explode into stardom. I mean, again, we're back to is whether or not a player is truly elite. I'm not sure where the stats are, what rating you have to explode into stardom. 7-2 down the stretch feels like at least a slight launch into stardom, like kicking in of one of the engines on the way to the rocket train to stardom. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's if if you're working at Bleacher Report and you have to have 10 articles out by noon explaining who is or is not going to explode into stardom, Kenny's as good a candidate as any.
I mean, we saw him at the Luke Combs concert. If he came out this weekend at the Taylor Swift show at Acrisure this weekend and chugged the beer, that would be, stardom explosion.
I was going to say, yeah, you might not even have to play the season at that point. That would be a full stardom explosion. Yes.
Well, Bleacher Report isn't the only one expecting big things out of Kenny.
Okay.
At PFF, top breakout positions at each top breakout candidates at each offensive position 2023. Quarterback, Kenny Pickett.
Okay.
So, NFL marketing isn't buying heavy on the jerseys, but we got PFF and Bleacher Report going big.
I mean, I could also see, putting Kenny on your list here to kind of drive engagement to this list, because, I mean, I'm not sure how many clicks you're getting with the name of the Lions tight end, although I've been standing here trying to puzzle that one out. But I'm sure each of these guys are good and probably had a decent rookie season. I mean, I remember some of these names from other guys they said the Steelers should have drafted, such as this Jenkins. I remember Watson was one that they'd mentioned a lot. That I know that Williamson thinks the world of London and Atlanta if there's anyone to throw him the ball. So I mean, this is probably a pretty good list of guys.
It's not. I mean, who else would be the breakout quarterback? It's Jordan Love.
But it also might be. I could see like putting Kenny as a list versus the guy that went first overall this past year with a team that wasn't terrible, that was within a couple games of the playoffs in the Panthers.
Brock Purdy, is he ready for breakout, or is he already broke out?
I was going to say, the guy played the NFC title game, so I think it's hard to say he hasn't broken out at that point. But
he's exploded into superstardom.
I don't know if exploded into superstar. He exploded when that guy hit him.
So Kenny's got to. That's the threshold, I guess. Is Brock Purdy?
I think the threshold is the playoffs.
Playoffs.
There you go. Thank God you don't have that clip.
One more thing about Kenny, because it's not just. Let's talk about inside the locker room at Faribaugh FB. Nick Faribaugh. There's one area of his game that Kenny Pickett has really impressed the Steelers veteran, and they're talking about Allen Robinson.
Okay, thank you.
His communication. Kenny's unique in the fact that he goes deeper into what goes into each and every play. Communication. No one talks as good as Kenny.
I guess. I mean, I felt like Mitch communicated fairly well too, but I remember being at the games even early in Roethlisberger's career where he would go around and shake everyone's hand or hug them or dap them up during the stretching, and it was always something to watch for if you got to the games early enough. And I remember being at the game on Christmas Eve and not seeing Kenny do that, but also it was insanely freezing then. Maybe maybe that's not a style. I don't know, but I mean, again, I'm never going to know what one quarterback says versus another, but this is one of those things that feels like, isn't that kind of what he's supposed to do?
Well, everyone is just piling on how big of a leader and a great person Kenny. Is it over? Are we overdoing it? Like we're expecting a superstar explosion.
Well, but I think we're not expecting anything that comes from Bleacher Report. We don't have to listen to them. But I do like but there is some. But I mean, it's if enough people are saying one thing in the locker room, it's probably not untrue. It's probably coming from somewhere. So that each of them are saying this guy seems like a leader, and also too. I mean, Allen Robinson's maybe not the best example because he wasn't here last year, but a lot of these guys were. And I imagine there probably is a difference between the rookie who's literally trying to learn the playbook and, backing up not just Mitch, but also Mason versus someone who's coming in and saying, this is my team. This is what we're doing. Let's all get on the same page. Veteran I am communicating with deeply.
Yeah.
Nobody loves football as much as I do.
There you go.
Not anymore, Mitch. Kenny loves more than you. Kenny is the one who's loving it. He's got the offense.
I
Apparently,
didn't say anything about love, just communication.
just communication, the better talker, the speaker. All right, enough, Kenny, because we've got to play the hits. Still finding, no matter how of an explosion of superstar Kenny is going to be, we still have Matt Canada.
Oh no, it's another graph. I failed it last week. So
This
I
is
already
from.
can't figure
Oh
this
wait,
out.
let me. Actually, I
good.
got it a little out of order here. Let's go to
Oh,
Mark.
good.
Let's start
Okay.
with at Mark
Yeah, put
Cabali.
the graph off. Yeah.
Insider Mark Cabali asked Matt Canada about the pressure he faces now with everything seemingly in place on offense. Quote, there's pressure every day in life if you have something worth doing. I don't feel more than I ever did. I will do the best job I can for us to win football games. Not what the fans want to hear.
Well, what?
Or is it?
I was going to say, it kind of. What would the fans want to say? Like, absolutely. I've already started to move some of my stuff onto the lawn. I'm not sure how this is going to go. I mean, this is what you would have. Honestly, this is what you'd say in like a job interview. If somebody was like, "How do you deal with pressure?" There is pressure every day in life if you have something worth doing. Person I found on Monster.com or whatever it's called now.
Hey, I typed your interview responses into AI chat.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is. This is the AI thing. I think the next sentence after this is, my weakness is I care too much.
Well, the other thing is that Canada was saying, like, we're not making any big play. He was kind of not admitting that there was a Glengarry playbook. He's kind of saying that we're just going to keep doing some of the same things. We're not going to, change too much. And
see, that is interesting because everyone else has implied that the Glengarry playbook is in effect, or at least it's been unearthed or written or something. It is interesting then that Canada's the one like, no, we're going to keep doing what we're doing.
Let's go to at
here we are.
Shane Half, NFL, Shane Half.
Okay.
Here is an offensive specific adjusted games lost. This is a graph plotted against offensive EPA per play.
Okay.
The Matt Canada effect is killing the Steelers.
Oh, boy.
An offense that healthy all season has got to perform better.
Okay.
So let's look at this chart. I
Please.
put it up on the board. This is
Oh no. Okay.
on the X chart is games lost. This is like if for healthy, like games lost according to healthy, health players out.
Okay, that's what the bottom.
That's what the X chart.
Okay,
Steelers are on the left as the most healthy.
Right, because the offensive line was insanely healthy last year. Okay.
And Rams are on the right with the most injured.
See. And the Texans are just almost off in Antarctica here with injuries or something or other. Okay.
And then north to south is, I guess, EPA, which is expected play average. I don't know,
Okay, now, but here's the thing, though. Teams in the upper left, good teams, great offenses. Kansas City, San Francisco, Buffalo, Philadelphia, Bengals. I get that. Those are good offenses. So presumably that's where you want to be. But the Lions had a great offense down the stretch, right? Why are they over there? Or maybe more dudes were hurt for them than other teams?
They're north of the medium lines, but they also had injuries. You could say.
Oh, I see. Okay, so
you could say they overcame most of their
injuries,
injuries,
and that would explain why San Francisco. I see. Okay,
but the point that Shane Half is making is
they were so healthy. Okay, so the guy's saying the Steelers were so healthy, but they still didn't get the offensive production. That's what you're talking. Okay. Man, it only took me 5 minutes to figure this thing out. Yeah, okay. That's interesting. The Jags are basically in the same place too. At one that seems having so much more talent than everyone else.
If health, there isn't if it's TJ Watt, there's a direct correlation. But besides that, I don't know if maybe Kenny this year, but I don't even know if Kenny. I think it's just TJ and Cam. Really.
Right? Yeah. I mean, that does show that they, that this is a stat to remember. If the offense does get very, very good a few years down the line, and then someone does get hurt, then they, that this is something to remember. Like, but you also can't bank on injuries and all that kind of thing. It was, it does show what that shows. The Matt Canada offense wasn't good enough last year. It shows that pretty definitively. So hopefully there's either the Glengarry plays or they start doing the old plays in a Glengarry way.
Oh, doing ordinary things more extraordinary.
Glengarry. The mammoth analogy breaks down at that point. But you see what I'm saying. Yeah.
I don't even understand where that's coming from.
I don't either. We just spent 5 minutes on a graph.
Oh, man. Graphs are kryptonite for me.
Let's get back to the Canada talk at Alex Kozora. Alex Kozora.
Hey.
Steelers' yak was poor last year, but it wasn't because their wideouts couldn't break tackles.
Okay.
Highest break tackle rate of the 78 players with 50 or more receptions in 22. George Pickens 10th.
Wow.
Pat Fryermuth 12th. DJ 15th. DJ, he runs backwards. 15th in broken tackles.
Okay. So this would be, without digging out another graph, this would be a condemnation of Canada then, right? Or of the passes being short, or Kenny just getting it out there in the wrong place?
It's certainly not an indictment on the players. If you know,
I see. If you're breaking tackles, then you were doing what you could.
Yeah.
I mean, each of these guys were that high ranked.
No one was pulling any, Santonio Holmes or AB type of
diving to the ground.
So yeah, we got to improve yak. Everyone knew that,
But I think it's also part of the idea of bringing in, another tight end, bringing in another experienced wide receiver, particularly a tough one. Yeah, I can see that.
Let's go move on to at Steelers DB Derek. I tried to avoid Deontay Johnson discourse on here as much as possible, and I thought I came to the conclusion that he had hit his ceiling, but he pops on film every single game against top competition. If this dude was in another offense, the narrative would be different. Have you seen any of the videos he's training with Route God, I think?
I've heard of Route God, which means that I've been online too much. But
he's got this twitch muscles.
Oh,
he's fat,
exactly. Whatever the twitch is, he's built up his twitch. I certainly connected to. I try to avoid Deontay Johnson discourse on here as much as possible. I felt that very strongly. But I think there's something to. I mean, as much as Deontay frustrates the fans, as much as I too am personally frustrated when I feel it when he was running backward, the Steelers clearly disagree with this. Moreover, multiple generations of Steelers, from Ben to Kenny to Mitch to all of them, love Deontay. And the entire team does. So I mean, I think they see this popping on film thing in a way that maybe the fans don't, and maybe he does. I mean, maybe he draws a double, maybe he draws the good corner, maybe that and that's how Pat's able to be open a lot of times. Like, that kind of thing's possible too.
With DJ, first you had Tomlin saying during his contract talks that he embraces his style of game, and I think that's the ultimate compliment. And he was talking on and off the field. And also, I charted DJ's catches last year, and he's running a lot of curl routes, a lot of comeback. If Kenny's scrambling, it was a lot of comeback.
A young quarterback. Oh yeah.
So there wasn't any yak. Yeah, because he was coming back to the play, or catching at the end, at the not the end line, the out of bounds, sideline,
end line. The line ends there.
The side end line.
The side end line.
So he wasn't in a position for when he did a quick slant, two steps in a slant. He got his yak.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
All right, maybe we should take a break, head into the second half, because I promised the All-Tomlin Team. All right, and not everyone's gonna love it. Why? Because it's Steeler Nation. Why would they? But I took this seriously. This isn't just let's just go over the lineups and come up with a roster. I went 53 deep with practice squad, and I took this seriously as a Matt Canada press conference.
Yes, you did.
All right, we'll be back in the second half.
Raise your brand, you got it. Raise your brand, you want it. You got confident, secure.
Feeling confident? Raise your brand. Got 150 million? Raise your brand. Need AI solutions to carbon-based insurance problems? Raise your brand and reach for Acrisure.
Confidence, tried and secure. Raise your brand, Acrisure. Raise your brand, Acrisure.
We're back for the second half. What Jin's talking about. I promised the All-Tomlin Team. 17 seasons. Who would, the easy people are easy on the roster, right?
Oh, yeah. Stars.
But I went 53 deep, and I came up with a 14 player practice squad. I know you're allowed 16 now, but okay, whatever.
But he wasn't. It wasn't always COVID when he was coaching. So yeah,
that's true. I'm
So
going
you
with
did
old
right.
rules. Old rules. So let's start with quarterback. All right. I put 3 there. Obviously, Big Ben. Can't argue with that.
Yeah.
Then I went with Charlie Batch.
Yeah.
33 games.
Yes.
You know,
he played a lot more than people realize.
You know, the win-loss record might not be there, or the big moments that.
There were some big moments. I mean, that last moment is one that reverberates forever, beating Baltimore down there. Charlie had some big moments.
Hard to argue now for the number. You know, we keep 3 quarterbacks on the roster for the number 3. You know, he's only been with 1 year, but because of the 2 comeback from behind wins, I had to put Kenny up there. You know, he's already got more yards than Charlie Batch. He's already got 2,400 yards compared to Charlie's 2,000. So even though only 13 games, I think Kenny is worthy of the All-Tomlin roster spot.
I mean, the only argument I could make there is if somehow Landry had won that game when Ben was out, but you know, 3 guys couldn't cover Gronk, even though Landry kept them in it against the Pats and Brady. So yeah,
and Landry,
I think you're right here.
Landry had some wins, but it would sometimes be Week 17 in Cleveland. Or, you know,
that's what I'm saying. He didn't have the big moments.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, Charlie had the big moments. Kenny had the big moments. Landry, unfortunately, for reason it wasn't him covering Gronk. They didn't. So
all right, let's go on to running backs. I got 4 here. Obviously, Lev Bell, right? 5,300 yards. Next, I went with Rashard Mendenhall, 57 games.
Yes.
Hard to argue with the resume there.
I don't think there's any argument there.
3,500 yards, 29 touchdowns. Next, I put Najee. I know it's only been a couple seasons, but he's already put up 2,200 yards, and he's got 20 total touchdowns.
Yeah.
So, which is more than, because we're talking the Tomlin era, Willie Parker, who does make he's my 4th running back.
Yeah.
But, you know, we need a change of pace back. Willie did put up 2,400 yards in the Tomlin years.
Oh yes, absolutely. And I as I was looking at your rankings, I couldn't help but think of, you know, Tomlin's quote about we're going to run them till the wheels ran off. And with Willie, unfortunately, they kind of did. And Tomlin not tried to, but had to with Najee. And other than, you know, the first half of last season, the wheels didn't come off. So I think that durability speaks to having Najee over Parker, although that is a fascinating debate between those 2 players since they're so different.
You know, Najee can pick up your 3rd down block. Maybe he can catch in the 3rd down slot. Willie is kind of a change of pace. I don't know.
Well, just imagine if Willie could have caught. I mean, if he could have caught the ball, what that would have been like. My word.
I agree, Cope. All right, let's move on to wideouts. I'm putting 6 on the All-Tomlin roster, starting, of course, AB.
I was going to say, there's not a lot of argument there.
Can't argue there. Next, I'm putting Mike Wallace,
the one-trick pony himself.
4,000 yards. You know, he's going to be my Y. Is that what it's called? He's going to be on the outside.
Well, he's the one they never really replaced. I mean, not that you could replace a talent like AB, but a guy who can, you know, absolutely outrun everybody and outstretch the field. They've never really had that sense.
Yeah, they tried, you know, but never.
They've tried so many times.
Wallace had 4,000 yards and 32 touchdowns under Tomlin, so I'm putting him 2nd. 3rd on the wideout depth chart, Hines Ward.
Yes,
27 touchdowns. In the Tomlin era.
Even as he's on a clear decline, he was still there to absolutely carry the offense at times. I mean, the only reason they're in Super Bowl 45 or climb back to it is a major part of him, yes.
And, you know, he can be that A-Rob type of guy. He's in the slot.
That's a really good analogy.
He can do whatever he wants there. All right, you know, 3 more, and this is where it starts to get a little tricky. I'm putting Juju.
Okay.
Next, you know, 3,800 yards, 26 touchdowns in the Tomlin era.
Yeah.
And actually, these all 3 you could kind of go anywhere with them.
Yeah.
Deontay Johnson, 3,600 yards, 20 touchdowns. And Santonio Holmes in the Tomlin era, 3,000 yards, 18 touchdowns. I'm putting them all on the roster. I couldn't leave any of them off.
Yeah, I think that's all right. I mean, it's easy to forget that Santonio had 2 really good seasons, his rookie season and his second season, even when the Steelers don't make the playoffs under Cowher. But I mean, who could have possibly been left off of this? Martavis, his stats don't match up to this, despite some great highlights.
17 touchdowns for Martavis.
It's not the same, yeah.
And Santonio Holmes, I think back at the 2008 season where, not single-handedly, but...
Oh, in the playoffs, he was an absolute force.
Yeah, talk about yak, talk about clutch.
Or even just a punt return for a touchdown. I was at that game against the Chargers. They weren't in it and weren't awake until he scored that.
Whoops.
The cream of the crop.
No,
Cream
the,
of the
the
crop.
crickets were fine too.
Oh,
that weren't inappropriate. I remember the first half of that game.
Let's go to tight ends. No question, number one, Heath Miller.
Yeah.
But surprisingly, the stats have Pat Freiermuth, number 2 on my depth chart, 32 career games already, 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns.
I think that shows just how much, not just how much potential he has, but how good he's already been. You were
He
talking
did.
about someone that could explode to stardom in the second season, and as a veteran, not in second season anymore. Freiermuth is way up there.
Yeah, where's he on that list of jerseys who could explode this year? You know. Now I got room. I'm putting 2 more tight ends on the roster. And
Well, that's what we're doing now. I mean, that's what they're doing with Darnell and Connor.
Surprisingly, I'm putting Jesse James, 56 games, 1,189 yards, 9 touchdowns.
I had no idea that 3 and 4 on your list had these similar stats.
Yeah.
That's a real surprise. to
Jesse
me.
James and Vanimal the Animal, almost identical. Vance
Yes.
has 53 games, 1,100 yards, 9 touchdowns. Jesse James, 56 games, 1,100 9 touchdowns.
That's wild. I never would have guessed that in a million years.
And and they both have a little bit of lore. Jesse
Yes.
with, of course, Jesse Caught It, and Vance with the biggest poster.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't remember anything else from that game, and it doesn't Bud Dupree score a touchdown? Like that whole game was strange.
So I'm putting all 4 on the roster.
I think that's right. I mean, that's what they do now, carrying all those tight ends.
All right, let's move to offensive line. I'm putting 4 tackles.
Okay.
Sometimes we have 3 on the roster, with a swing, and then we stash them on the practice squad. I'm going for Alejandro Villanueva, Pro Bowl, only Pro Bowler.
Yeah.
So I got to put him number 1.
And moreover, one they built. I mean, he
Yeah.
was just some dude. I mean, obviously a hero and all that, but I mean, he was not. Literally the team. What is it? Tomlin saw him at a preseason game. Was like, who is the tall guy? And then they made him into a Pro Bowler.
Next, let's go to right tackle. I'm going Marcus Gilbert, 87 starts. So just on that, on that metric alone, I'm putting him on the All-Tomlin team.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. I think he was I think that's a fine pick.
Number 3 on the depth chart. He swung either left or right tackle, and he was twice franchise tag where he was tagged twice. So with that, I'm putting Max Starks, 66 starts as my number 3. That surprised me personally.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, maybe I'm just so used to Max being around the team now in his media capacity that I was like, oh yeah, Max Starks. But I mean, I remember him certainly as a memory. But yeah, I mean, Max Starks was a more than serviceable player. I mean, when people talk about the 43 offensive line and Ben did it despite of them and all that, there were some players on that line. There really were.
One more tackle's position. This guy's actually position flexible. He plays some guard as well. I'm putting Willie Colon, 48 starts.
See, I think that's the one that if you had done this, a decade ago, that's the one where the fans would have been mad. I mean, I remember the old man sending me, he never sent me a meme in his life, but it was like an attachment to an email, and it was Colon celebrating on the sideline, and someone had put he had his arms up for the touchdown running on the field, and they put "despite me" between his hands.
Oh.
But I think, we sort of got spoiled thinking what a good offensive line was, and there's been some offensive lines in recent memory like, man, I wish I had what I thought was a bad Willie Colon.
Yeah. And he could play guard. He was guard flexible. The other option would have been like a Trey Essex.
I mean, it's which again, I mean, there's probably a debate there, but it's been too long since then for me to adequately participate in that debate.
Mike Adams, not.
That was
all right, let's go to the guards. I mean, this is pretty obvious. Alan Faneca, David DeCastro, and I'm going with just a third guard because we have Willie Colon flexibility. Yeah. I'm going Ramon Foster for the the amount of starts. Period.
Again, a guy they built. I mean, one they created themselves. 7th round pick. I mean, obviously we missed on the draft grade, but yeah.
Centers. This might leave me a little thin. I'm just Marquise Pouncey, and that is it.
Yeah, I mean, the other option is probably Mason Cole. I mean, I'd probably rather have him.
You'd rather Mason
Hartwig.
Cole or a Hartwig, or because I was going to stash Hartwig on my practice squad.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, but I think that's if we're debating who the backup center is, I don't think that's like we've got to see.
This is the All-Tomlin team. This is important. This is important. Mason Cole could easily surpass. I mean,
right, with a good season.
Hartwig had 32 starts, so
right.
It's hard to.
Cole has 17. So all
right, let's go to defense.
Okay.
I got 6 members of the defensive line.
My God.
Cameron Hayward, obviously all pro.
Yep.
Aaron Smith, not necessarily recognized with the All-Pro or Pro Bowl.
Well, I think it's the Tomlin era as Aaron Smith. That's just how good he was, is that you also have him in the Tomlin era, too, after Peter King took so much flack for having him on the All-Decade team. Because they're like, this guy had 20 tackles in a decade. It's like, yeah, that's no part of what his impact really was.
Exactly. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard to judge based on stats alone. For that same reason, Brett Kiesel is making it. I'm putting Stephon Tuitt on
There weren't many seasons, but when he was healthy, he was unblockable. He really was.
And big snack, Casey Hampton.
Yes, even in his last so many years.
Even if he was showing up to camp and put on the physically unable to perform.
Right, and then they made him go jog in the lower bowl. Oh, man.
Physically unable to perform at Latrobe, but always able to perform in Hines.
Yes,
So.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I couldn't leave. I had a hard time with just 5. I'm putting Javon Hargrave.
How can you not? The guy was incredible. He signs this massive contract with the Eagles, an even more massive contract with the 49ers. Every penny of it earned. He's just that good that you got to put him in there. He's tremendous.
Well, it was because when you get on defense, you start talking about linebackers, and there's just a lot of them. Let's go to linebackers. Obviously, Debo, James Harrison, 80.5 sacks. T.J. Watt. 77 sacks.
Might pass that in September.
Yeah,
for the all-time.
And I'm starting to have this take that T.J. Watt is on pace to be the greatest Steeler ever of all time.
It's not impossible. It's just he's got to stay healthy.
Next, Lamar Woodley, 57 sacks in 94 games. He wasn't a Steeler for life, but I'm putting him up there above other names like Bud, Worlds, Alex Highsmith.
Oh yeah, 100%. I agree with all of that. It's just you mentioned Woodley right after Watt, and Woodley is someone who was on. It's easy to forget now just how amazing his progression was early on, and then it all stopped with that injury. I mean, he'd signed that huge contract, and after that, he was really ineffective. It's as sad a tale and as much a part of the downfall of the Super Bowl teams as anything else. And that really showed to me, not that I didn't know, like what a real lingering injury can do. I mean, he certainly made himself the team. He was there with Highsmith in Mexico doing a draft pick, and how lovely that was to see. But that just shows how even an amazing start can peter out with just some injuries there.
Yeah, at any moment, it can all be over. I'm putting 5 outside linebackers. Outside linebackers.
That's the way they always looked at it. The outside was always more important than the inside.
The engine that runs our machine. So I'm putting Bud Dupree up there. 81 games, 39 sacks. And my 5th spot over Jason Worlds, I'm putting Alex Highsmith. 22 and a half sacks in only 49 games.
Yes, and coming in under undue circumstances after, Bud was hurt during COVID. I mean, I think what Highsmith's done is more impressive than Worlds. Again, he was the 3rd round pick on Zoom. I mean, like it's, Worlds came from Virginia Tech, Highsmith from UNC Charlotte, whatever that is. I think that pick makes sense too.
All right, let's go to inside linebackers. Lawrence Timmons, Tomlin's first pick.
Yes.
Hard to argue with that. 158 games.
Can you imagine what he would have been like today in the way the game is now? I mean, he would have been a superstar.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. James Ferrier, 78 games under Tomlin. I didn't
realize
realize
he played that long with him under Tomlin either.
Yeah, and 518 tackles. So, Larry Foote, I'm putting him on the roster. 158 games, same as Lawrence Timmons.
That's amazing.
621 tackles. It's I guess. Has it been that long? It seems like Larry Foote, it's been a while, but
yes, he also played for a long time too. I think it's easy to forget that. It's easy to think like, oh, he played with Cowher forever. No, he didn't. Like he sort of came in towards the end there, I want to say.
And for my 4th inside linebacker, I'm taking him over Vince Williams. I know he only played in 46 games, but Ryan Shazier, 2 Pro Bowls and 1 All-Pro.
Vince would have told you to put Shazier in over Vince. I don't want to speak for Vince Williams, but I feel pretty confident in saying that.
Okay, good. Then with no discussion needed there, let's go on to cornerbacks. Okay. I'm putting 5 on the roster.
Okay.
Ike Taylor, Steeler for life, 174 games. Joe Hayden, only 68 games, but 10 interceptions in that time,
and a true leader in the first really leader cornerback they'd had since Ike Taylor, the first one in that time. So I think that's a fine pick too.
My number 3 cornerback,
okay,
160 games, William Gay.
Hey, when he was there, he was good. He was on a great defense. He was the weak link, and on a declining one, he was a breath of fresh air.
11 interceptions. Yeah, I mean, I think he has the team record for pick six in a season.
I think that it's one of those like weird Steeler trivia questions, like somehow not Rod Woodson. Yes, I think that's right.
My fourth cornerback, we need a nickel. We need a nickel back.
Oh yes.
I'm putting Mike Hilton, 59 games, 9.5 sacks.
I feel like they were like twice that. Just I don't know, maybe it was just impact or when he did it, but it.
So so I guess just a few seasons there, but. I mean, who? I don't know. Is it who else would you?
No, I mean another Nickelback. What? I mean, essentially, you never heard about them talk about Nickelback nearly as much until Hilton arrived.
I'm putting one more on the 53. Brian McFadden, 52 games, 25 starts, 159 tackles. Not his prime, I guess, but. Compared to some other options like Deshae Townsend or Steven Nelson.
Yeah, I think McFadden's a fine option, particularly coming off the bench with your roster. I mean, it's and also, again, the big plays, the moments you remember, the breakup against the Colts. Like, you remember... Yeah, McFadden was there for the big plays, particularly early in his career.
And I don't know if you heard his interview with Troy
I haven't gotten to watch it yet. The letter. I know they talked about the letter.
Oh yeah, the letter. That was pretty emotional. He had it in his wallet. Does he always keep it in his wallet, or was he just happen to have it for that interview? But
I don't know. The guy's
cool.
a media professional too. And also, by the way, I think he definitely stays on this team if with Patrick Peterson this works out, since he essentially recruited him.
Maybe he gets knocked off by Pat Pete. Who knows? Let's go to safeties. Obviously Troy Polamalu.
Right. Yeah. Another argument there.
I'm putting number 2. I'm putting Terrell Edmonds.
Okay.
79 games, 410 tackles, 5 sacks, 5 interceptions.
He was always available.
That's right. That was the biggest compliment. Availability.
Yes.
But, compared to, Sean Davis or... What else? What else were you going to put there?
No, that's just it. I mean, Sean Davis was... it's hard for me to say Sean Davis was a bust, but Sean Davis maybe didn't necessarily live up to his draft position.
Yeah, that's true. Now, I'm putting one more strong safety. This guy can actually flex strong or free safety.
That's true.
I'm going Mike Mitchell, 61 games, 61 starts in the Tomlin era. So, some people don't... some people think he was one of the weaker players maybe in the Tomlin era, but I like
I think it's again one of those things. It was when something went wrong with that defense, which is very good, it was easy to blame it on him. I mean, when we've seen again the players that came since that maybe weren't as strong, you're like, oh, Mike Mitchell was maybe a little better than we thought. Also, I think they changed how they use that position maybe a little bit.
The change, it has evolved. Yeah. Free safeties, I'm putting 2.
Yeah.
For a total of 5 safeties. 2 obvious: Minka, Ryan Clark.
Yeah, I don't think there's any other argument there. Yes.
I didn't want to put a long snapper, but then it was like, how am I going to neglect the contributions of a position of a man who spent 10 seasons playing long snapper? So Greg Warren makes the All-Tomlin team. Kicker is tricky because Sean Sweesum and Chris Boswell both pretty much had the same kicking percentage.
Okay,
but Boswell had 116 games compared to Sweesum's 71. So
that would kind of do it for me.
I'm putting Boswell on the All-Tomlin team. Punter, we got Sepulveda.
Wow,
43.7 yards per punt. Jordan Berry, 44.4 yards per punt, but he put almost twice as many within the 20. 154 kicks within the 20. I think Jordan Berry is your All-Tomlin punter.
I mean, the only argument I would see against that is I want to say it was a Tomlin error or not. It's just that Gardocki only needed 1 foot. Like he only needed 1 step. That's the only thing. But yeah, I mean, I think after Berry had a good year in Minnesota, where it's a lot easier to punt after they got rid of him, the Steelers. I wonder if they regretted that a bit. But yeah, Berry could do the job sometimes.
I got a 14-player practice squad.
Oh no,
You're gonna hate this. My QB on the practice squad. Mason Rudolph, 17 games, 2,300 yards.
You have him over Landry?
Yeah, I have him over Landry, Duck, and Byron, and Dennis Dixon.
Byron was more or less spent by then, so I can see that. Dennis Dixon, no.
Mike Vick.
No, I mean Vick was entirely. I mean there was the guy in a Mike Vick jersey by the time Vick came to the Steelers. So I mean, if you're debating Mason and Landry, which would have been an amazing Red River shootout in college, but yeah, the fact that I'm fine with this just because there was never an expectation, okay, Landry, it's your team to carry this. It's your team. And they did have to go to Mason with that in 2019.
Running back, I'm putting James Conner on the squad. I know we already got 4.
I think it's a good pick.
I'm putting a fullback. I know I didn't have a starting fullback, but Rosie Nix had a Pro Bowl season in 2017.
Oh, yeah, and he was real good, and he was great on special teams, all that.
I'm putting him on the squad.
I mean, the only other argument's what, Derek Watt? I mean, it's too early for Connor Hayward in this position. I think Rosie Nix was the only player I ever had to unfollow because he was such a big Columbus Blue Jackets fan on Twitter. And I remember during that playoff series.
I'm putting Martavis Bryant on the practice squad, wide out.
Absolutely.
You know, just because
you got to protect him when someone tries to sign him because he has all those freakish athletic gifts.
And if there's an injury on those wide outs, that's who I want. I was thinking Harris Dayward Bay for the special teams, but this is an All-Tomlin. This isn't the special teams.
Right, exactly.
roster.
And also, if we're continuing this fantasy, some of these guys, like Vince Williams could play special teams in his team. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you got Deshae Townsend. He could play special teams for you. Like,
yeah, I got them both on the
guys that
squad.
weren't asked to do that since college.
Vince Williams on the practice squad, Deshae Townsend. I'm putting Steven Nelson on the practice squad too.
At the time, the biggest free agent signing in Steeler history, most expensive. Yeah.
30 games, 30 starts, and if it wasn't for some kind of weird hostages v. volunteers.
Oh, yeah, the case of hostages v. volunteers, yes.
Other people on the squad, Matt Spaeth, tight end. Tackle, I'm putting Chooks on the squad.
There's really not much to choose from. I mean, that Chooks gets in. I think that's right.
He got the contract. They said last year he had some of the least pressures allowed or something.
Something to that effect.
So Chooks is on my squad. Chris Kiamato is on my squad.
He was a winner.
And I'm putting Justin Hartwig center on the practice squad.
32 starts is a lot more than Mason Cole. That makes sense right now.
Yeah, more than Mason Cole, more than the big Legursky. I don't know who else were the centers. I can't even. What you said, Sean Mahan or something.
But that was the line where like, oh god, they're gonna get Ben killed.
I put a linebacker, Jason Worlds. 73 games.
And the thing about Worlds is he came on in that last season. He was truly dominant. He struggled before then, but that last season, he was really, really good.
I'm putting 2 safeties. I know we talked crap a little bit ago, but I'm putting Sean Davis and Tyrone Carter on there.
Yeah, I mean, it's as high as they drafted a safety in terms of Sean Davis, and he was a serviceable starter. He just wasn't a star. And Tyrone Carter was, maybe like a proto Terrell Edmonds in that he was available. He played. He made plays when he was in there.
So that's my All-Tomlin squad.
That is quite a squad.
Go to BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. We'll get that up there so you can tell me why I'm wrong in the comments.
There you go. Or exactly. You can defend the honor of Sean Mahan a decade later.
Maybe I'll work on an all Cower one next.
Boy.
Or maybe I'll just do an all Noel and it'll just be the Super Bowl starters. All right, the band's on the field. All right, we got some odds and ends to wrap this up. Let's start with at Tahunga Mob, LA Foothills. I love Stan. He was the only media member left who was honest about the Steelers. He was critical when it was deserved. He was such a nice counterbalance to blind Homer QB apologist Charlie Batch. So this started as a nice tribute and then turned
just totally. But this is what Steeler fandom on Twitter is like now, especially now we're left on Twitter. I mean, if you're still there. I love Stan so much. I mean, I called into his show when I was like 10 years old, him and Guy, and they were so nice to me. He actually, once my dad went to an alumni dinner for Miami, Ohio people, and he ran right up to Stan, and they sat and they talked all night about Pittsburgh sports. Stan was amazing. He even responded. I'd send him like an email in college. He got right back to me. Stan is a real loss. I mean, it's you'll hear so many great things about the way Stan treated people and how kind he was, and certainly I saw that in what few interactions I had with him. But if you even just listen to Stan, you watch the old clips, the man was so good at communicating. It was just such, like, he'd break the information into short, easy to understand chunks. You always got his opinion. It was always well reasoned and well argued. And it's really, you listen to him, it's not just a way to talk about sports. That's a great way to communicate, like in your job and in your everyday life. I mean, if you just even watch, a couple clips of Sports Beat, I mean, that's not to go on about this forever. It hit me the other night. That was the original film podcast.
Yeah.
They just happened to do it 5 nights a week on KBL when, the other thing was, I think an infomercial was on before and after them, or like darts. Yeah, it's real easy to forget what KBL was like back in the 90s, gang. But But yeah, that was, I mean, a pioneer and a worker, and losing Stan is a tremendous loss in a lot of ways. I didn't call into Sports Beat as a kid. I called into Stan and Charlie Batch as a 40-year-old man. But what I remember about Sports Beat was, like, you're right. It's like this podcast before this podcast was, the hot, people calling in with the hot takes. Bro, yeah, and they calling it like dinner time, like from the bar, like, oh, man. I still have a inside joke with people from my hometown. We still say every once in a while, "Fire Varsho," because someone called in once wanting to fire Gary Varsho. So we still say that, "Fire Varsho." Yeah, and yeah, it's a bummer. It's just, like Cope and Stan
Tunch.
and Tunch and Franco, and it's
Right.
just, this is, and I mean, even beyond that, like just musicians and stars from that era. It's just, we're losing them fast now. The boomers are there's gonna be more and more of this as we go. It's sad. Let's try to do something less sad. At Daniel Kelly, we now have 20 seasons since the last NFL realignment. These are the only finishes we haven't seen. Included Browns first place in the AFC North, Steelers last place in the AFC North. So, wow. Not only have we never had a losing season in the last 16 years, we've never been last place in the division. I mean, this one's very impressive. The Patriots one's very impressive. The Browns and Lions are sad, and the Eagles one's just weird. I mean, how do you not never finish in third place? That feels statistically way less likely than everything else on this sheet. So once again, people will say, "Oh, you're just making excuses for Tomlin. No losing seasons." But I don't know. Well, I mean, but there's also a difference between, like, oh, we went 7-9 versus we were in last place. I mean, that's even more impressive when you put it in this context. Yeah, that gets a. Oh, there we go. You've unlocked the Triforce of wisdom. Now I know where the dungeon boss is. All right. How about for the last? We'll give the final word to the Game Day NFL. The Game Day NFL. The fact that Dak Prescott is 4th and Tim Tebow is 9th. Laughing emoji. These are the top 10 highest selling jerseys of all time. Wow. Number 8. Right above Tim Tebow, number 9. That's shocking to me. Number 8, Troy Polamalu. Highest selling jerseys of all time. More than Ben, more than... I guess who would it be? I guess it would be... Well, I mean, this makes sense, but it's also... I mean, there's not a single player here that played before... I mean, the furthest back player here is Peyton. Walter Payton. I mean, that's Bo. You're right. Walter Payton. Yeah, I mean, it's because Bo and Steve Young are the '80s. So I mean, I think the buying a jersey with a player's name on it thing really took off around the '80s. I think you could almost kind of chart when this began with this thing, because you didn't see that in the '70s. Like, people, you never see somebody like with a Lambert jersey they didn't make or something in those old clips. You could only buy jerseys back then, like out of the Sears catalog, and it was, I think, like maybe a generic 32 with no name on it. I'm saying, yeah. So I think that this is a more recent thing, but I mean, everything on but at least okay, Dak is like, all right, you're sure he's not the same, but I mean, you can defend Dak in a way you can't necessarily Tebow. Like, that's a cultural statement versus one about football. Dak's a Pro Bowler. He's a guy that if this thing bounces this way, bounces this other way, he could have played for a championship. Dak, to me, he's on one of the most popular teams in the world. I mean, that all makes sense to me. It's a Tebow, and we're like, I'm part of the problem. I bought a Tim Tebow jersey for my brother, who's a Broncos fan. Okay. When he I had to buy two. I had to buy Tebow and then a Peyton back to back. That was an expensive. Okay, but it also shows how these kind of things can happen because you had a brother. It was the family, Well, maybe we'll get Kenny, if he's an exploding superstar, Kenny Pickett up there. Well, I mean, at least or two more guys to bounce Tebow down to 11, so you get it off the sheet. I'm surprised it's not Heath Miller. The number of Heath Miller jerseys I see in Acrisure. I'm surprised Troy beat out Heath there. There is a surprise the tight end that played for not as long as you might think. It is surprising how many 83s.
That's what we've been talking about.
I guess that's what we've been talking about. If you want to keep the conversation going, I guess I'm on social media. I don't actually. I try not to be. When Reddit went down for 48 hours this week, I went over to the Discord, the Steelers Discord page. And what was over there? Was it? It's run by the team?
No, it's just run
okay.
by, same as Reddit, just run by
see.
Yinzers or whatnot. So maybe I'll be on Discord. Maybe if you're on Discord, see me there. I'm still not on Steelers Blackjack. So,
there.
which is what I really want to be on. Anyway, so yeah, if you want to follow me on social media, at Kyle Kreis. Greg, how about yourself?
I try to stick primarily to Instagram, at Greg Benevent, V as in boy, E-N-E, V as in Victor, E-N-T.
Next week, what? I don't know what to tease. I don't know.
Well, we don't know. That's the nice thing about this podcast. We never know what it's going to be about. I mean, who knows what the biggest storyline of next week is? It'll probably be more mini camps and offensive linemen.
Until we have superstars exploding all over the place, keep listening to your coach.
Be their best selves. That's going to be required.
Stay in school.